you turn to Judges, the 13th chapter, we'll start there. We won't finish the life of Samson here this morning, but we'll begin Judges chapter 13. Let me ask the kids just a quick question, too, that are up here. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of Samson? Strength? Somebody else? Yeah. Strong. Okay, what else? Sarah? Hair? Hairy? Yeah. Tall? Anything else? A judge? Very good. Good. All right, well, we'll take a look at his life, because I know when I was a child, that's kind of what I thought too. With some of this, as he was a strong guy, and most of the pictures are, but I heard a preacher say it one time, and I believe him. I think he was actually a skinny, short little guy. Real skinny. No muscles at all. And we'll see at the end of the book why I say that. But let's begin at the third verse. This is the last judge in the book of Judges, so it's getting to the end of this book. We'll probably have about three more weeks after this in the book of Judges to finish it up. But this is the last judge, and this is the last sin cycle that it talks about, and it's very brief in whereas chapter 10 gave a drawn-out thing of how they had sinned and how the debate that God had with them. But now chapter 13:1 just begins this way again. I think we're kind of getting the idea of how this sin cycle works, maybe getting a little tired of it. But it says, again, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. It doesn't go on to tell us the rest of the cycle or that they called out to God or anything like that. It's very brief. But again, you see it happen. Time had passed. Other judges had come along. And Samson would be the last judge that we deal with in this book. Although Samuel seems to be the last judge in the next book in 1 Kings. 1st and 2nd Samuel. But now let's continue reading the story. So they've fallen into sin. And now there was a certain man from Zorah of the family of the Danites. And I meant to have a picture up here sometimes. You could see where the different judges came from in Israel, from different tribes. But they came over from all over the country. And now you find somebody from the tribe of Dan. Zorah of the family of the tribe of Dan, whose name was Manoah. And his wife was barren and had no children. And I like this in the Bible where you have that so many times, don't you, where God chooses barren women to accomplish his purpose. It just shows me that God's sovereign, This is an impossible situation. This birth of Samson is a miracle birth. And so she wasn't able to have children. They weren't able to have children. And then it says in verse 3, and the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, indeed now you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. And so it's kind of neat. The angel of the Lord here, he appears again. Many, and I'm with them, that think this is this pre-incarnate Christ come and visits this woman. What a day, She told it, kind of like Mary, you're going to have a child, or Elizabeth. And so she's going to bear a son. And this is one of the places, just like Jesus' birth was foretold, and Samson's is too, before he's even born or anything like this. Now, in verse 4, now therefore please be careful not to drink wine or similar drink, and not to eat anything unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head. For the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb. And he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. So this is kind of setting the story here. How was he born and different things. And he was going to be a Nazarite to God. In Numbers chapter 6 is where it talks about the Nazarite vow. And basically three things that were to mark them is, one, they couldn't have anything from grapes, raisins, anything from the grape, the fruit of the vine, and or drink it. Second thing is they could not touch any dead body or be defiled. And the third thing was that they wouldn't cut their hair, and no razors will touch their head, and so on. So kind of to me, if you ask me, kind of a gross-looking figure. And but this was the sign of the Nazirite vow that he would have it. In the Bible, there seemed to be a temporary thing, a temporary Nazirite vow, which was a certain days. Some of the rabbis and others have said about a 30-day period, and that Paul, that's what he took, a Nazirite vow. And so there were temporary ones, and there was more permanent one. One was John the Baptist. Also was the same way. Took a permanent one that was to last all his life. And notice, what does a Nazirite mean? What does it mean here? He shall be a Nazirite to God. The word means is separation. Different. He's going to be different. He's going to be separated. And isn't that what a believer is? A person that's been separated to Christ, to God. And so from even his birth, from the womb, he was supposed to be separated unto God. So God had his hand on this Samson's life and had a part in, she couldn't conceive, and God did a miracle so that she could bear. So this angel, the angel of the Lord comes and tells him this. And I want you to notice here, he says, and this is key, I think, to understanding part of this book. After he said he would be a Nazirite to God from the womb, he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. And that's key here, that he begins to deliver. It doesn't say that he will deliver them from the Israelites. That never happened in Samson's life. He began to deliver them from the hand of the Philistines. And now the Philistines are ruling over Israel for 40 years. And some of you might think I didn't shave today because I took a Nazirite vow just to be a Samson here this morning. But that's not so. Anyway, I make a little, just so you know, I saw a dermatologist, and they asked me to not shave for 4 days because of my face and so on. And so there we have it. It's out in the open then. No. All right. And I didn't take a Nazirite vow. But in a sense, I'm separated to the Lord. So, all right. So this woman, she's out there, and so she runs to her husband in verse 6. And so the woman came and told her husband and saying, a man of God came to me. She didn't really know who this was, but she's watch her describe it. A man of God came to me, and his countenance was like the countenance of the angel of God. Very awesome. But I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. And he said to me, behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. Now drink no wine or similar drink, nor eat anything unclean, for the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb, and to the day of his death. That was to be his life, a Nazarene. And verse 8. Then Manoah prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord, O my Lord, please let the man of God whom you sent come to me again and teach us that what we shall do for this child who will be born. So she finally, after she has it, she goes and tells her husband, hey, we haven't had any children, but hey, today a man of God came up to me and said, we're going to have a child, and I'm not supposed to eat certain things because he's supposed to be a Nazirite from his birth, from the womb. And her husband hears about it. I like this about him. We're living in days here, at this time, where everyone did what was right in his own eyes. So anything goes, but here was a man who wasn't worshiping Baal. Here's a woman who wasn't worshiping Baal. They were worshiping and praying. And who does he pray to? He prays to the Lord God when he hears that he's going to have a child. And I like this. Aren't you glad if you have praying parents that you have parents who pray for you? What a privilege Samson had. Samson had so many advantages. And I think this is one, that he had a father who prayed. In a day when many others were not praying to God, to Jehovah, they prayed to Baal and others. But Noah prayed to the Lord, and he said, oh Lord, please. He wanted this man of God to come again, that you send him again, that he might teach us. Lord, do you ever ask God that? Lord, help me to raise my kids. God, teach me how to do this, because this is the first time around. And we only get one shot. So Lord, teach us that we may do for the child who is what to do with him, who is to be born. And I love verse 9. And God listened to the voice of Manoah. God listened to the voice. Isn't it interesting to you? Do you ever have that happen? When you have an answer to prayer, you just say the same thing. God listened to the voice of Dan. God listened to the voice of Lucas, of any of the kids here, of any of you sitting here. When you get an answer, God listened to the voice of Manoah. He didn't have to come again. He said it once, right? But wow, he listened to the voice of Manoah. And the angel of the Lord came to the woman again, and she was sitting in the field. I don't know what she was doing, probably working out in the field. Normal day for her. And angel appears again and doesn't even wait for them to be together when he appears. You know, I like the story, how it carries on, you know. She has to go look for her husband. She was in the field, but Manoah, her husband, was not with her. Then the women ran with haste and told the husband and said, "Look, the man of God who came, the man who came to me the other day has just now appeared to me." So Manoah arose and followed his wife. And he didn't even come with. It's interesting. When he came to the man, he said to him, "Are you the man who spoke to this woman?" He said, "I am." I like that too. I am. Manoah said, "Now let your words come to pass." Do you see this faith here? We believe you. May these words come to pass. What will be the boy's rule of life and his work? So the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Of all that I said to the woman, let her be careful. She may not eat anything that comes from the vine, nor may she drink wine or similar drink, nor eat anything unclean. All that I've commanded her, let her observe." And Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, Please let us detain you, that we may prepare a young goat for you." And the angel, the Lord just answers him back, says, "All right, you can detain me. I'll stay here with you a little while, but I'm not going to eat your food, but go ahead and make an offering to me. Come and make a burnt offering." So he goes and he prepares this goat, and prepares an offering for it. And he's offer it in the name of the Lord. And he was going to offer it to the Lord, but it makes a statement at the end of verse 16. It says, "For Manoah did not know that he was an angel of the Lord." The angel of the Lord. And so Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name? When your words come to pass, we may honor you." And the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?" I love that too. There was a time when even Jacob, when he wrestled with God, we hear that? He asked that same question, "What's your name?" He got no answer. But here he says, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it's wonderful?" And it actually means it's beyond comprehension. Yeah, my name is beyond. Can you try to explain God in one word? Can you give him a name that suits his name? I mean, even when Isaiah the prophet in Isaiah 6, he names it. He says, "And he shall be called Wonderful Counselor." He names a bunch of things, but wonderful was one of them. Seeing it is wonderful. And Manoah still didn't quite get it, but he will. So Manoah took the young goat and the grain offering and offered it upon the rock to the Lord. And he did wondrous thing while Manoah and his wife looked on. And here it is. It happened that while the flame went up towards heaven from the altar, the angel of the Lord descended in the flame of the altar. And Manoah and his wife saw this. They fell on their faces to the ground. Be quite a thing, huh? They'd offered sacrifices before, but as they're doing it, this angel, like he steps up into the altar and boom, goes up, ascends into heaven in the flame. Quite an awesome thing. And these two, what do? They fall on their faces before God. And then it says, when the angel of the Lord appeared no more to Manoah and his wife, then Manoah knew that he was the angel of the Lord. You know, it made it mention in 16 that he didn't know. Now he knows who this is. And he's afraid. In verse 22, he says, "And Manoah said to his wife, 'We shall surely die because we have seen God.'" We've seen God. What an awe of him, and they fall on their faces. What do you think you're going to do when you see God face to face? Huh? I often think of John, the apostle, the disciple of Jesus, who walked with Jesus, who leaned his head upon Jesus's breast, at the supper, who did, and he was close to God, to Jesus, as he walked the face of the earth. But John, when he sees him in his glory in the book of Revelation, he says, I fall in my face as a dead man. It's amazing what it'll be like to see God. And they were afraid. They said, no man will see God and live. And so they fall and we're going to die. And then his wife had a little more sense. She kind of put two and two together. Well, if God wanted us to die, then why would he tell us these things? Number one, first of all, why would he accept our sacrifice? He did accept it. Number two, then, why would he have told us we're going to have a son if he was going to kill us before we could have children? So she put two and two together and their minds were eased. Wait, you're right. You're right. But it sure did something in their life. I bet they were never changed. They were changed forever. What an experience they had with God. And in verse 24, so the woman bore a son and called his name Samson. The name means little son. I think maybe that's where we got the word, you are my sunshine. No, maybe not. The little son. So that tells me he was little tiny thing. But little son, she calls him, her sunshine. Little bright spot in her life. And then it says, and the child grew and the Lord blessed him. How many advantages can you have more than this? Your birth foretold. Parents who prayed for you. Parents who feared God. Parents who offered sacrifices to God. And then even asked, Lord, teach us how we can raise this child. And it says that the child grew and the Lord blessed him. It doesn't really tell us a lot other than God blessed him. And then in the last verse, and the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him at Mahanaim, Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. So what a beginning, what a heritage, huh? What an advantage to maybe when some of you are the first-time believers in your family. Maybe didn't have this many advantages, but boy, would you say, looking at Samson's life, wow, he had it made. What blessings he had. And even that the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him. And this is, let me tell you, kids, this is why you see Samson was, I think he was just a scrawny little thing, and you'll see later on too. Especially next week. I'm not going to spoil it for you this week. But what made him strong was the Spirit of God would come upon him. It wasn't how his arms were so big, because he killed 1,000 people later on, we'll see next week, with a jawbone of a donkey. His legs weren't strong because he could carry the gates and posts of a city gate and walk off with them and throw them on a hill. And you say, wow, he must have had legs. You see him like that. Or it wasn't even because of his hair that Samson was strong. He was strong when the Spirit of God came upon him. What a lesson this is to us. What a lesson this is. And so now we begin the life of Samson. Skips all his youth pretty much, other than said God was blessing him. And at times the Spirit of God would come upon him and would move upon him. In verse 1 of chapter 4. Now Samson went down to Timnah. That's the Philistine territory. So now he's leaving Israel and he's going down to the Philistine territory. And he saw a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. So he went up and told his father and mother, saying, I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me as a wife. Get her for me as a wife. And here is Samson, with all the blessings he has. He goes and he begins to look elsewhere. His eyes are open and he sees the Philistine women there. Remember at the beginning, if you want to turn there to chapter 3, part of their downfall when they were to move into a land was that they were not to marry the women from the nations that were there. chapter 3 and verses 5 and 6. Thus the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites. Remember, they were to chase them out and to conquer, but they hadn't. This was shortly after they entered, right? Thus the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be their wives and gave their daughters to their sons. And they served their gods. That's the reason God said don't do it. Don't marry an unbeliever. It's going to affect you in the reverse way. Don't think you'll be stronger and be able to convert them or whatnot. He says, no, it's actually, they're going to change your mind. You want to take a good example of that is Solomon. As wise as he was, and the wisest man that ever lived, God gave him wisdom. But he was weak in the area of women too. And he caused him to worship other gods. Say, it will never happen to me. Well, here's the warning from God's word. They'll turn your hearts. And so this was a warning to him. And yet he goes out and he sees a pretty little girl out there. My, is she good a looker. And he goes back home. And Dad and Mom had parts in these days of the wedding and so on. And settling the dowry and all that. And so he comes home all excited. Hey, Dad, Mom, I was in Timnah there. And probably thinking, what were you doing over there? I was looking, hey, I saw a pretty girl there. And I want you to get her for me. I want your blessing on this, Dad, Mom. This is something I wanted. I want. And so he begins to, verse 3. Then his father and his mother said to him, is there no woman among the daughters of your brethren, or among all my people, that you must go and get a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? You see their hesitation here, and rightfully so. They're godly parents. They say, wait a minute. You know, God is warned. Isn't there enough among the Israelites? Can't you find among the Jewish people one of your own, one who believes in God? Can't you find one like that to marry? Why do you have to go to the uncircumcised? Remember, circumcision was a sign of the covenant with God. Israel had an agreement with God. They were on par with God. The Philistines didn't have a covenant with God. And so he says, don't marry them. And he says, aren't there enough pretty girls in Israel? That's one of the questions I get sometimes when I go to Slovakia or stuff, and we go into schools and do an English class, and they can ask us anything they want. Are the girls in Slovakia prettier than the girls in America? So I should say I will not answer that question on the grounds that it might incriminate me. No. But they want to know about the pretty girls and so on. But there was enough, he says here in Israel. Why do you have to take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistine? And I like his parents. And this is just a thing for a kid. You should listen to your parents, you know, especially with advice about marriage. Don't say, oh, they're old-fashioned, you know. Well, these are ancient words, aren't they? And God doesn't change his standards or ways just because we're in the 21st century or, you know, and beyond, and that those things change. And Samson said to his father, get her for me, for she pleases me well. Some of the versions say, and I like that better, it's she's right in my eyes. I think it's ESV. She's right in my eyes. And this is a time when everybody's doing what's right in their own. She pleases me well. What's Samson doing? He says he's living for the pleasures of this life. His eyes are open. He just wants the lust of his flesh. Something to please him. Get her for me, for she pleases me well. And then it makes this statement in verse 4. And his father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord, that he was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines. For at that time, the Philistines had dominion over Israel. So he's given the picture here. He's saying, listen, the Philistines are in power here. They're ruling over us. And God was seeking an occasion. And see, this is what, not that Samson took a Philistine for his wife or wanted a Philistine for his wife. That wasn't the will of the Lord. But God was seeking an occasion. I think that's what it says here. I have a line between it. Let's read it again. For his father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord. What was of the Lord? That the Lord was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines. Remember, he was going to begin to deliver him. And so God was going to use this situation, bad as it is, and turn it, I guess, kind of like Joseph's brothers, right? Was it wrong for them to sell their brothers into Egypt? It was cruel. They were going to kill them, so that already murder in their hearts. And then they thought, well, let's make a profit out of it. Let's make money off our brother. And they sell him, and it says in one of the Psalms, I think, about his cries. He pleads and is crying for his brother. What an awful thing. You think that was of God, as I say? It was an evil thing. And at the end of the book, you get to the end of Genesis, and what a similar situation. And Joseph just lets him know, you meant it for evil. Yes, it was evil. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. And I think this is the same thing happening here. Was it right for Samson to do this? No, it was wrong. God's word forbid it, but God was going to turn it around, the situation. He was going to begin to deliver Israel. And the Philistines were in power. In verse, the next one there, I can't even see the number. So Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother and came to the vineyard of Timnah. That kind of speaks to me a little bit. Didn't he take a Nazirite vow? What's he doing hanging around a vineyard for? You can see he's already starting to fall, maybe. Now, to his surprise, a young lion came roaring against him. You guys heard that before. Huh? Roaring against him. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. And he tore the lion apart as one would have torn apart a young goat, though he had nothing in his hand. But he didn't tell his father or his mother what he had done. Wow, can you imagine? They're going down to Timnah to meet this girl. Dad and Mom must be walking ahead somehow, and I suppose he didn't want to go with Dad and Mom for a while, or maybe he had a bathroom break. I don't know what happened, but he was all alone when this lion met him. So he was in a vineyard, near a vineyard, maybe cut through the vineyard. I don't know. Was he eating grapes? I don't know. Doesn't tell us here, but a lion came out after him. And then the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God came upon him and empowered him. Not because he was strong, but God gave him the strength of nothing in his hand. He ripped a young lion apart. My, that's quite a happening in his life. That had never happened before. And it made me think too of 1 Peter 5:8, where it says, your adversary, the devil, comes like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. You know he's after you, don't you? I hope you do. He's always out to destroy. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he destroyed that beast that came against him. And he didn't even tell his parents about it. You know, if it was me, wow, Dad, Mom, I killed a lion just now. You wouldn't believe it. Yeah. But it seems to me he just doesn't tell him. And then verse 7, then he went down and talked with the woman. So this is kind of, first he saw her. It mentions that he saw her. I saw a woman in Timnah. Dad, Mom, go get her. So finally goes now with his parents and he begins to talk to her. And he went down and with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. He liked her. He liked her when he saw her. Boy, after talking with her, he liked her even more. And you see how sin works? The sin never just comes out, and somebody's a drunkard on the street and you see him there. It didn't just happen overnight. It came with, I'm going to try a drink. It comes little bit over time. So that's the way sin works. And somebody had said, we ought to start treating sin like sin treats us. Destroy it, because it'll destroy us. But it never happened little by little. So you see Samson begin to compromise little by little. First he saw. Now he talks. And he says, I like her. I want this. I want her for me. She pleases me. She's right in my eyes. In verse 8. After some time, he returned to get her. Now he's going to go get her. And he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. So he's walking back. He's going back to Timnah to have a marriage and a feast. And he's walking along, and through the brush, he remembers where he killed that lion. He thought he'd just go over and check that thing out and see how the decomposition was coming along, or what. He goes over and he sees the lion that he had slain, the carcass of the lion. And behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the carcass of the lion. He took some of it in his hands and went along eating. When he came to his father and mother, he gave some to them, and they also ate. But he did not tell them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion. Well, I think there's partly a reason for that. Because remember, as a Nazirite, to touch a dead body would defile him. And now he's reaching in, defiling. It doesn't seem to care much about his vow, does he? Plays in the vineyard. Now a dead body touches. Unclean. He doesn't even tell his parents, lest they might know about it. I don't know. This is part of my thinking here. But it doesn't tell him. So his father went down to the woman. I don't know where his mother lived, or she didn't even go to this feast. But the father's there. The father went down with the woman, to the woman, and Samson gave a feast there. For the young men used to do so, and it was a wedding feast that would last 7 days. Okay, preparation to consume this relationship, consummate it. And it happened that when he saw him, that they brought 30 companions with him. Didn't have his own friends. I wonder if Samson had any friends. I don't know. But he didn't bring any of his friends down there with him. And so they provide him with 30 Philistines. Isn't that nice? People he doesn't know is going to be the party of the life with him. Life of the party. It's kidding. And Samson said to them, let me pose a riddle for you. If you can correctly solve and explain it to me within 7 days of the feast, then I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. But if you cannot explain it to me, then you shall give me 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. Whatever the dowry was for it here, he thought, I'll make a little profit and get some food by this. Nobody's going to solve this riddle I got for him. And so he makes a bet. Places a bet. Hey, I'll make a bet. You can't figure this out. And the bet's going to be this. I owe you, if the Saints win, no, the Rams win, I get this much. No, but if you can't figure this riddle out, I'll give you 30 pieces. And the attire apparently, and I did a little bit of studying on this, they say that it's party clothes. I mean, this is elegant stuff that he's talking about. It's not just any old clothes off somebody's back. It's elegant, something from a wedding feast like. And so this is what the bet was for. And they said, impose your riddle and so we can hear it. And so he said to them, out of the eater comes something to eat, and out of the strong comes something sweet. Remember, if the lion, so it probably has something to do with that, right? And the honey. Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. Now for 3 days they could not explain the riddle. So I guess this would happen often in parties too, and they'd have games and stuff to do and occupy them part of the time. This was part of it. And after 3 days, these guys, the Philistines, can't figure it out. And he said, wait a minute, it's starting to feel their pockets a little bit. This is going to hurt us financially. But it came to pass that on the 7th day, my version says 7th, but if you look down at some of the notes, the Masoretic text and the Vulgate and different ones say day 4, which is more accurate. But it came to pass on day 4 that they said to Samson's wife, entice your husband, a good start to a marriage, by the way, entice your husband that he may explain the riddle to us, or else we will burn you and your father's house with fire. Well, these guys weren't playing around either. They were serious. They threatened her. Basically, they threatened her life. Hey, you better go to your husband. I will do what you have to do, entice him any way you can, but we're going to burn your house down if you don't figure it out. And they meant it, because we'll see later on next week. That's what happened. Have you invited us in order to take what is ours? Is that not so? Then Samson's wife wept on him and said, you only hate me. You don't love me. You posed a riddle to the sons of my people, and you've not explained it to me. Somebody said This is a woman's strongest weapon, her tears. So the waterworks start, and she begins on day 4, crying on his shoulder, saying, please tell you hate me. You don't love me. You tell me you love me. You hate me. You won't explain it to me. And he said, look, I haven't explained it to my father or mother. How should I explain it to you? Now she had wept on him for 7 days, or the rest of the time here, till that 7th day, while the feast lasted. And it happened on the 7th day that he told her, because she pressed him so much. She nagged and nagged and nagged and cried. Does this sound like a good feast? Would you want to be at this feast for your wife and just crying and nagging the whole time? I mean, does this sound like a fun wedding? You ever been to one wedding like this? Man, you start to get the idea. Maybe this isn't a good idea. Anyway, then because he nagged her, she nagged so much that he finally explained the riddle to the son. Where was I? He wept in the day, 7th day. And because she pressed him, then she explained the riddle to the sons of her people. So the men of the city said to him on the 7th day, before the sun went down, before that day ended, we figured it out, Samson, we figured it out. And what is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? Samson lost the bet right there. They told him that, and Samson knew he lost. But he knew how they found out, too. And he says these words, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. Another word of advice, men, don't call your wife a heifer at a wedding. You young cow. If you had not plowed with my heifer. What's he saying? Hans, you don't use a heifer to plow with, do you? No. Use an oxen to plow. You don't use nobody does. So what he's basically saying is you cheated. You didn't play fair. You cheated. You plowed with my heifer. That should never be. And otherwise you wouldn't have solved my riddle. So he knew his wife spilled the beans, and so now something's going to happen to him. Right after they figured that out, it says in verse 19, then the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, and he went down to Ashkelon. That's one of the cities of the Philistines, about 23 miles from where he was. He goes down to that city, and he killed 30 of their men, and took their apparel, and gave the changes of clothes to those who had explained the riddle. I don't know how much time this took, but he went out of there in a rage. Spirit of God came upon him. That's why he could defeat these Philistines. And again, this is the way God began to deliver Israel into his hands. But I don't know if he found another wedding party going on somewhere and just went in there and started knocking heads or what, and taking their clothes, and comes back, and he comes back to these 30 guys and just like throw their clothes down and left in a huff. And so the anger was aroused, and he went back up to his father's house. Didn't even finish the wedding party necessarily, didn't consummate the marriage. He throws the clothes there and goes back home to where his dad, to his home there. And it says, and Samson's wife was given to his companion, who had been his best man. Not a good start, is it? Not a good start. This story is very much different than a lot of the other judges who roused a military force. You don't find that anywhere, Samson. It's kind of like the judge Ehud. Remember Ehud? I call him Ehud. He went in there and he killed the king by himself. It's kind of that start. He was kind of a loner himself. And Samson in here, he does all the fighting in that sense. You know, he's never roused an army. Everybody else did. Deborah, all the other ones. He roused an army. He was kind of a loner and went at it single-handed exploits here. But 30 guys against one. That's quite a thing. But again, remember, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. And that's what strengthened him to do it. So you can kind of see it was a a marriage or a wedding without a honeymoon. And he missed out on his wife, and his wife was given to his best man at the wedding, to one of the other Philistines. And we'll read more about that next week. But that's kind of the beginning here. And how do I sum this up? Or I guess I just say it like this. This is Samson was separated from his birth to God. We dedicated our kids to God. We just said, God, they're yours. You gave them to us. Use them. They're yours. But today, ask yourself this. Are you doing your own thing? Or are you doing the will of God? If he set you apart for himself, who are you living for? Are you your own pleasures? That seemed to be what Samson was doing. I want her. So I want her. Give her to me. Remember what it tells us in the New Testament? You are not your own. You were bought with a price. Therefore, glorify God with your bodies, which is his. Are we using these bodies that are not our own to glorify God today? Again, remember, they're living in the days when everyone did what was right in his own eyes. It's not far off from the day we're living in. But God overruled. And again, young people and anybody of us that remember, the Bible tells us if we're going to marry somebody in the Lord, right? So that we're not unequally yoked. And he wants to spare you from all the problems you'll get. Again, I probably already said this, but one of my cousins too married an unbeliever, and he's threatened her with knives and everything else, and she has to spend time at my aunt's house sometimes when things get real heated and he gets real drunk, because he was going to change and he was going to go to church, and that never happened. She's much older than I am today, and is still to this day suffering from the consequences. Still married to him, but God wants to spare us from that. It doesn't have to be that way. And so God in his mercy is saying, listen, I love you too much to tell you. And so can you at least listen to your parents too? And they say, don't do this. Don't go into the Philistine territory. Listen to them. They have good advice. But in a sense, Samson's life stands for the nation of Israel. Israel was separated to God. God called Israel. God appointed them, and how the worship system was supposed to go. But what did they keep doing? They kept going back to other women. They committed spiritual adultery. Always chasing after this God or that God. And God was jealous. God was sad. But they come to the end of themselves. They fall and they call on God, deliver us. And God came back again. So in a sense, his life kind of represents that. Set apart to God. And next week we'll look at the full story, the rest of his life. But I think that gives us a good picture into it. And but just also to look into our own heart and life. Say, where am I with this? How's my life compared to Samson? Am I, again, sin starts little by little. But I'd rather end up like Joseph. What a contrast. Joseph, in a foreign country, keeps himself pure, loves God, serves God. God raises him to the highest position in the country. It's very contrasted to Samson, who was called and set apart to God, but he chose to do his own thing, follow the lust of the flesh. And it does come back to bite you. You can play with fire for so long, but eventually it'll bite you, and that's what we'll see in Samson's life next week. But eventually this caught up. Yes, the Spirit of God came down upon him. But there comes a time next week where we'll see it, and it's the scariest thing when he says that he rose up and didn't know that the Spirit of God had departed from him. And so let's walk with God this week. We're separated to God. Let Samson be a lesson to us of, let's learn from his life. And so, Lord, we thank you today for your word. You have separated us. You called us out of this world to be your church, which is called out people, a people separated to you, a peculiar people. And Lord, you've set us apart. We don't belong to ourselves. Somebody paid a great price. You did on the cross when your blood was shed for us to buy our pardon, to buy my pardon. And Lord Jesus, you, again in the New Testament, have just told us that our life is not our own, that we were bought at great price. And therefore to take these bodies of ours and use it for the glory of God, not for illicit sex and for other things, Lord, gambling away our life, but using it for the glory of God. I pray you do that, Lord. Awaken us in the day, maybe in the evil days in which we live, but help us to stand for you and for what's right. Lord, we know the blessings that come from obedience. Even as we sang in that song, teach us, Lord, full obedience. Thank you, Lord. I just pray you bless the remainder of this day, Lord. Bless the meeting, the annual meeting coming up. And bless each one. Keep each one safe, Lord, on the roads. I thank you for your provision for all of us. You've been such a good God. We want to thank you. We want to praise you, Lord, that we've had homes with heat, warm clothes, that we've had vehicles and gas in them to get where we need to go. You've been such a good God, and you've taken care of us on the roads, and we just want to say thank you, Lord. And would you keep us this week, but help us to walk in your ways, Lord, to please you, not to please ourselves, and live for the glory of God, and make our life count. I thank you, Lord Jesus, for this day. We turn it now, the rest of it over to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.